So if you have ever heard the term, in guitar, you would call this a G9. Guitar chords are very simplified, but there's also G2, G with an added second. So a G, a B, a D with an A added. Now notice the A is the 9, and the A is the 2. We have no particular term for that in Roman numerals. We would probably circle the A and try to explain it as a non-chord tone somehow, a passing or neighbor. But this is confusing to guitarists because guitars usually use the 9 and the 2 almost interchangeably. But I want you to understand they're really two different things. If you have a 2, you're adding an A to a G chord. But if you have a 9, you're not only adding the 9, but you're adding a 7. So the difference is, it's quite a difference because here's a G. I add the 2, the A. You've heard this before. That kind of dreamy, that's the added 2. Or this. That's the added 2. But you add the 2 and you add the 7. Now it becomes a dominant sounding chord. So you get. So what we are going to talk about is a dominant 9. It's still dominant. It still has the same function a dominant always has, which is to go to tonic. But if you see in guitar, sometimes you'll see a G9 and it won't go to a C. That's because they're just adding a 2. I don't know if that confuses you or whatever. This is not particularly classical. It's more like a pop sound. We're going to do the G9. All right. If we can add root 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, why can't we add an 11th? And a 13th. But this is not a 15th. Can anybody tell me why?
Because it's the same
Yeah, because you're back to the G. So if you can add as many roots as you would like to a triad. It doesn't change it at all. So there is no dominant.
Then it becomes on dirty bass.
The dominant 15th is by the Fountain of Youth. It's right there by the Fountain of Youth. So if you find one, you can usually find it. All right, so we can only go to a 13th. Now, it sounds all well and good that we are just adding these thirds. So here's our dominant triad. Now we make it a dominant 7th. We hear that tritone, goes to there. Now we add another third, a dominant 9. You still hear it pull toward the tonic, but it's getting a little jazzy there. These 9ths, 11ths, and 13ths are used a lot in jazz because of the color, the flavor. Okay, and
It sounds less dramatic.
yes.
Well, it's muddying up the 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, classical composers use this one the most, and this one the least. So, most, least, not much.
But what about the 20th century?
20th century, they're not using chords anymore. They're not.
Oh,
It's just atonal. Now, there's an inherent problem with the 11th. Can anybody see what it is?
2 chords in it? 2 triads?
Yeah.
2 separate triads?
It's like GBD FAC.
Yeah.
Now, the purpose of the dominant part of it, or the dominant 7th, you've got your tritone here. The F is going to go down to an E, and the B is going to lead up to a C, right? that you've already got a C. So you have your leading tone and your tonic pitch at the same time. Yep. Here's the whole chord. So you get the third of the triad and the 11th clash. Now, that's particularly why classical composers avoid it, but we're going to have to leave some notes out because we're writing SATB, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they could just make up a convention where you don't have the third of the triad, or you leave something out. So it's possible, but the truth is, classical composers can get the ninth to work very well. They will occasionally dabble in a 13th, but they rarely use an 11th.
So in that 11th, you would more than likely leave out the B and the
Yeah.
A.
Yeah, we'll talk about what, you'd have the A. Well, we'll talk about what you would leave out. But even the ninth, we're going to have to leave something out. So, and there's one interesting thing that happens with the 13th. You have every note of the scale. You've got do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, do.
Wow.
Now, the problem with that is, if you see like a scale run or something, like that, you'll go, well, that's a 13th because it's got every other. So remember, 13th is rare, so you're going to start, every time you see non-chord tones, you're going to say, well, it must be a 13th because there's a whole bunch of notes there. But 13th is pretty rare.
So that's what 13th.
All right. If we're SATB in a ninth, if you leave out the fifth, that'll give you the best sound. Now, I don't want to say that's the only good sound you'll ever get, but looking at the great composers, that's the best. They seem to go for this leaving out the fifth. And it seems to help the part writing too. Some other good news is usually these are in root position. And it's easiest to understand with the 13th because if you have every note of the scale in a chord, what would an inversion do? It would just give you a different 13th. They'd all be 13ths because they all have all notes of the scale. So the only inversion we'll really see, there's a very rare first inversion of the dominant ninth that has the third in the bass. But otherwise, we want these to be root position. That's good.
What did your figure bass need for it?
Whole heap of numbers. No, if it's root position for the ninth, you'd have a 7 and a 9.
Oh.
And then for the 13, you'd have a 9, a 7, a 9, and a 11, and a 13. Whatever numbers, you just have the numbers for that. Okay, if you were to try to be brave and have an 11th, you leave out the 3rd and the 5th. And for the 13th, 3rd, 5th, and 9th are usually left out. I mentioned pop music and guitar notation. Guitar will often have something like a G9, but I notice in pop music, they do this. They say play an F, but put a G in the bass. So Carole King,